Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Transformation Time. Every Thursday I host an episode of either Transformation Time or Read Behind the Scenes. My name is Diana Lizarazo and today's guest speaker is Fernando Nunes. Now before we get started, I want to share some exciting news with you. I have a social networking platform for the real estate investing industry. So if you are an investor, if you are a mentor, or you're a professionals are anyone that helps service investors, so trade side, professional side, as long as you're serving them, you want to be a part of this platform. This platform is there for people to collaborate together, to be able to support each other, to be able to show your properties, for example. You can share historical properties to build credibility and trust. You can share existing properties to show the process how it's going. You can share properties to be able to fund a project, whatever your purpose is. And you can also check out the public calendar to put your events in there or to be able to see what is going on. So if you guys are if you guys are ready to join, then you want to go to realestateinvestorfam.com, realestateinvestorfam.com. Be a part of this movement that's going on, and I'll see you there. And if you want to check out Fernando's profile, then get on there. You'll get to see what type of investor he is, what he's looking for, how he can help you, everything. Check his profile out. So now, if you guys are ready to get started, let's get back to the show. On the show for Transformation Time, our guest speakers are here to help you by sharing their personal development journey, the mindset shifts they've gone through to get to where they are now. And we'll get to hear about what changes they're making right now to get to those big goals that they have. So if you guys are ready, let's send Fernando some fire, some thumbs up, some happy faces, some love. Let's get him on the stage. Okay. And while we wait for him to get on, that was a quick one. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks. Now we got all that sorted out.
Yeah, finally. So now let's start with something simple. Let's just give the viewers a little perspective on you. What is your real estate strategy? How long you've been investing? Anything you'd love to share about yourself as a real estate investor?
Yeah, for sure. So, I started a few years ago, back in 2021, actually taking, investing more seriously. Before that, it's what a lot of people I think start as, right? Buying some residential property and hoping it goes up in value. So I joined a mastermind back then and started focusing on partnering with some folks and doing smaller multifamily, so duplexes, triplexes. And over those few years, of course, you learn a lot about yourself. And so I learned that that wasn't a good enough return on my time. So now I'm focusing on self storage actually and larger multifamily, so 30 plus unit buildings.
Awesome. So what got you into, let's start with first simple. What got you into even thinking about investing in real estate?
So it's an interest I've always had, right? Like my entire adult life, there was certainly an interest in real estate, a curiosity about it. And then, anyone who I knew who was what I considered well off in life, right? They all owned properties. They all owned rental properties, whether it be people in my family, friends, everyone owned it. So somewhere in my head, I guess I kind of clicked that in order to have that level of financial freedom or financial success, that the two came together. And so, combine the two, my interest and the obvious fact that that leads to success. It was just something that I always kind of followed along and decided I wanted to do.
Awesome. And I think like that, like having people around you, or even just people that you've never met, but seeing them, having them as influential people for you, I think is always very important for us because we definitely, like they say, you need the average of the five. And so it's just like, who do you want to be around? Right? And are they doing similar things or bigger things than you are? So I love that you said that because I personally find that when I'm always trying to level up and I think those are definitely one of the ways that really help out.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
with that, you were you realized that like you want to get into this group, like get into investing and meet higher level people. Now, a lot of people find it quite scary sometimes getting into something that they have no idea about. So, what did you do to make it easier for you to be able to get into real estate investing?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for me, so I actually probably sat in fear for a long time, right? I, came from very modest beginnings, lived in government housing, parents didn't have a lot growing up and whatnot. And so I didn't have the best head start, but when I bought my first property, slowly built through there, and then eventually at a point where I had equity, went through a split in my marriage, and then had to kind of restart everything. So at that point, housing prices had jumped quite a bit. This was 2012, 2013, right? And so in my market, the housing prices shot up quite a bit, 10% a year, and I could no longer afford um, to buy a house in my market. And so I just kind of complained for 10 years, right? I sat on the sideline. I complained a lot about it. I can't afford anything, can't afford anything. And then I was actually at some family's house, and again, all of them own real estate. They all own rentals. It was in a different market, a much smaller market, where housing was less than half the price of the market that I lived in. And I had this realization of like, I've wasted 10 years because while I couldn't afford anything where I was, I could have probably afforded two places in this market. And how much further would I be ahead now, 10 years later? Those houses still would have appreciated. I'd probably have, $300,000 of equity, and I'd be a lot further ahead in my journey. And that was it. That was all. That was the catalyst that I needed to, take action and to move forward and to not wait anymore, right? And so, I didn't have that same level of fear anymore because I realized that the worst outcome was actually what I'd already been living, which was not following through on what I wanted to do. And it was enough. So I actually invested quite a bit of money. The first step I took was invested quite a bit of money into mentorship to help me compress the time that I had already lost. And so I was able to then take action in the, preceding, I guess, about year, maybe a little bit under a year, and went from zero income properties to having seven income properties. And so
That's
through partnerships and whatnot.
amazing. And especially like you said, with your mindset of not even being able to afford one,
Yeah, exactly.
right? You're thinking like one is way too much. Even I feel like that probably shattered a lot of beliefs. I feel like in you, because you probably, like thinking going from I can't afford one to now figuring it out and finding can I make seven? And I mean, I don't think you were thinking that, but like, how can I
No,
buy more,
right.
right? And then coming up with seven, that what kind of beliefs do you think you shattered by that doing that?
I would say the biggest thing is, again, I've talked about the education side of it, right? And we, you alluded to earlier, the five people you're around and kind of the network you surround yourself with. And so being in a room, that virtual room, with people who are doing this, right? It changes your belief and your mindset. You sit across from people, you sit beside people, and you recognize that they're no different than you are. They're in the exact same life and the exact same roles and the exact same jobs, and they're doing it, right? They've amassed these portfolios, they've done these things. And then you're also taught the power of partnership, right? And even now, a few years later into my journey, and I see new people coming into it, and they have that limiting belief of, well, I'm going to start small because I really don't have much to start with. And it's like, don't worry about that, right? You can partner with other folks. There's a balanced relationship that exists in the ecosystem where both sides are needed, right? And so just being around those people, I think really helped open my eyes to the fact that other people are doing it. They're doing it successfully and they've been doing it a long time. And that's really kind of the way to jump in.
I love that. And I love the points that you said of don't worry about it. Because it is when you're coming in, you just can't even understand how you could even do any of
Right.
it. And I think this kind of leads nicely for the next question is because one of those is basically either what are your skills that you already have, right? To help that collaboration happen. Uh, and so for you, what were the skills that helped you to be able to, like that, get those 7 properties?
So, I've spent an entire career in sales. I think I naturally kind of came to that, both between personality and my upbringing. I moved around a lot, and so I was always making new friends and things. And so, speaking with people is something I'm very comfortable with. Um, I genuinely enjoy people too, right? So I talk, I listen, I try to learn more about them, and so that's always helped me through my sales career. And so then in this space, the same kind of thing, right? Building those relationships with people, building those networks, genuinely caring when someone's doing something good or when they're learning something, when they have like a victory of their own to celebrate, and being right there with them and pumping them up, not for any purpose of mine, right? But really because I'm truly happy for them. So I think in doing that, it really helps build that credibility with other people, and it draws people in. It becomes kind of like a people magnet. And so with that, it opens up the door for those partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a big part of it. And then again, my experience in business, I think, really helped me as well in being able to a couple things. One, look at the numbers and the problems that sometimes real estate investors face as they're really forming a business. And to me, I'm very comfortable in those situations. I've seen them before. I've seen multi-million dollar acquisitions. I've been part of multi-million dollar sales. So those big numbers don't scare me, right? And so those past experiences, I think, really helped build a comfort level to be able to jump in and really take big strides right from the beginning.
I love that. That's a great example, especially the one that you're talking about that. So in your past, you were used to seeing big numbers. So it's funny, big numbers didn't scare you, but you had, I guess, already surpassed the fact that you can afford more than one house too, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's amazing. And yeah, because that's another thing basically is that, like you're saying, right, creating these partnerships is finding basically the people that have the things that you don't have, to be able to be holistic and be able to work together to actually achieve a common goal. And so that being said, with partnerships, and all of us go through like failures in our partnerships that don't work out or learning experiences from them. What was, now that you've been through that, what would you share some tips that you would give for the viewers of your learning experiences from the different partnerships you've had?
Yeah. So I'll actually take that like even a step further back, right? And not just through partnerships, but there's this notion that gets thrown around a lot, trust but verify, but people don't actually really stop to consider what that means, right? So oftentimes we see people in our space, right? We're here live, there's an audience that exists, they watch and they like, well, they're further ahead than I am, so they must know what they're doing, right? This must be safe. Other people are agreeing with them or they're participating, and so it must be okay. But the reality is that it's not always okay, right? We've unfortunately, especially in the last few years, seen situations where people have been put in very tough situations. People have lost money. And so then that creates this fear of, well, now I can't trust anyone. Well, that's not true. But you've got to be able to look at people's history, people's experience, people's ability to work together, but still do the due diligence yourself to verify, what does this mean for me? Does what they're doing fit what I want to do? Does it fit my belief system? Does it fit, my goals? Does it fit my risk tolerance? All of these things that you still have to do just in general, right? Don't fall for the real estate gurus that pop on and, they're driving fancy cars and taking private jets and doing all this stuff. Because I'll tell you, some of the realest people that I've met in real estate don't do any of those things,
Mm-hmm.
right? They actually live quite modest lives, and They live based on their time freedom. That is the most important thing to them, but they don't have to be flashy about it. You wouldn't even know that the truly wealthiest people that I've known in my personal life, you wouldn't even know that they're wealthy. Other than that, they seem very comfortable and they always seem to be able to, show up places and do things during the day when everyone else should be working, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so, there's these certain flags that you start to look for. So when you go into partnerships, it's very similar. I've entered into partnerships where I thought that I could trust the person that I was joining. They had good backgrounds, they had very relevant backgrounds. And then there were early flags that came up, right? Certain little things like numbers didn't exactly match up, or uh, certain lack of transparency maybe that existed. And first they start to be like little flags, and then you maybe brush it off. But then as you go on, you're like, oh, this is worse. This is worse. This is worse. And then you start going to this mode of how do I get out of this? Right.
Mhm.
And so I now try to help people understand that it's okay at the beginning to ask a lot of questions. And some of them are uncomfortable questions. As an example, if you are someone who is a capital partner and you're investing with someone who's maybe an active partner, I think it's okay to ask for their credit history. Ask them for
Yes.
their own credit report, right? What situation are you in? Hey, let's work through this together. It doesn't mean because they have a lower credit score, maybe very little credit, that you're not going to work with them, but you start to look for things that are maybe red flags, right? Do their liabilities exceed any of the assets they have? Are they always missing their payments on things? That's going to show you they're not necessarily a financially responsible person. So do you really want to put
Mhm.
your money with someone who in their own lives is irresponsible with their money? Right? So I think that asking those tough questions and really validating what type of partnership you're entering is important. And then the other part is understanding the exit, right? People will often get into these, and everyone, is euphoric when they, especially are starting out, and they get into these partnerships. And of course, everything always just goes up. Nothing ever goes down, nothing ever goes bad until it does. And so understand what that exit's going to look like. What happens if one of you has to part ways? Your life changes, something goes differently, and you want to go a different direction. What are you going to do for each of you? And it's for the comfort of knowing what that plan is going to be so that there are no feelings involved in it. It is documented, it's planned, and it's an okay and amicable split that you can go off on your own direction so that when you're um, we talked about early in the conversation about even strategy shifting, pivoting as you learn more about yourself. Sometimes it's as simple as that, right? Hey, Danny, you and I are investing together we're not actually, but you know what I mean? We're investing together in maybe some duplexes, but I've decided I want to go into self-storage and I want to kind of sever my way from duplexes. What does that look like? We maybe love working with each other, but I just don't want to be in the duplexes anymore. So having that plan, I think, is super important as well.
Need that clarity. And all these things help also, I feel, reduce those fears to getting into a partnership. And even if you're in a partnership and things go wrong, because I feel like they will always anyways go wrong, something may happen, that not go wrong completely flip, but there's always going to be issues in partnerships that come up.
Mm-hmm.
Is the whole learning from this, right? So not letting it be like this is an end all situation, being like, what can I change in either myself or in the people I look for to make sure that I'm finding a better match for the people I want to work with. So even just because I know like that people get very scared of partnerships and it's like I never want to do it. And it's like if you want to grow big, if you want to actually impact either yourself or your community, you are going to have to go and partner up with people. And it's like you're just going to have to go through the learning curve. But as you said, some free work will help that learning curve be a little bit easier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, anything that I've said, I don't want to sound as like discouraging partnerships. I agree with you. It truly is the only way that you're going to scale. And again, we bring each other value in these partnerships and as part of this ecosystem. It's just a matter of don't just presume because someone has done it before that they know exactly what they're doing or what their plan is meets exactly your needs. So it's just have good conversations, ask lots of questions. You wouldn't go on a first date with someone and know that that's the person you're going to marry right away, or you wouldn't necessarily marry them on the first date. You'd probably get to know them first,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you want to have a successful marriage. And so the same thing in partnerships. I think you just want to spend that time asking the right questions, really getting to know, who you're partnering with and making sure those values align.
Yeah. And like you said, being okay and comfortable to ask about those money questions,
Yeah,
because it is like in Canada, it's a very, like, you don't talk about it, it's a very hush hush thing. As an entrepreneur, get over it.
exactly.
Get
100%.
over it. You
That's
have
why,
to ask.
that's why we're
And
here.
if exactly. And if someone's like, I actually have had people tell me, no, I don't want to give it, that should be flag enough to be like, clearly you're hiding something, at least in my opinion. I mean, give them a couple of chances, maybe they say no. Like one was like, I'm a very big investor, so I need to be sharing that kind of information. And I was like, okay, sure. And like then you don't meet my requirements for being able to give you any money, right? And it's just
Exactly.
like we may not be the good. Well, in this case, it's obviously money lending, but it's all the same, right? It's like then we're clearly not a good partnership, a working
Exactly.
relationship in whatever capacity that may be. So just understanding that, because don't be embarrassed, like, oh my God, they say no, I'm asking inappropriate questions. No, it's like people have their different views, and it's like you have to get to know them because it's like it's a partnership that can it could be detrimental if you're not doing those things. And again, learn from it for sure. Don't let it end it. It becomes maybe a huge failure. But as long as you learn from it, then you move on and you know what to do next time from your learning experiences. And I just wanted to actually dive into one thing that you said, and then a different thing that I kind of wanted to also add an opinion on, because I think this is so important. And you were talking about those kind of people that are super flashy. And I think there's a very big misconception on when people say spend, you spend your money, like you have spend money, make money, or whatever. It's understanding where that money is being spent, right? A lot of people think like, I need to have that amazing suit. I need to have that amazing car, that beautiful house. But is that making you money? And it's just like, I think people get very confused by, like, yeah, you can look amazing and spend all this money. Actually, in the crypto world, and I'm in the real estate world, same thing happened. But recently, there's like this huge crypto guy who spent all his money on like first class travels and just like living the luxury life. Spent, I think, like 80% of like tens of millions of dollars that were given to him. Um, and it was just like, you know, it are you spending the money in the right places? Fine, maybe that just makes you feel comfortable because maybe you just need it, right? But actually making sure that it's a business decision spend. And let's say the revenue you find that comes from it, spend it if you want to spend it, or use that money that you make for yourself. But in the business, it should be the money is asking yourself, does that money actually help, make your business bigger, improve your business in some way? So I think sometimes people get confused with that too, is thinking that you have to spend money to make money. It's like, but where are you spending that money? How are you spending that money? Any
Yeah, no, for sure.
comments?
Yeah, no, for sure. Absolutely. And again, I talked about private jets as the example and flashing those. I do know successful business owners who do take private jets, and it's because it's a better return on their time, right? They can take what would be a commercial flight that by the time they get to the airport, because they have to go maybe to a major airport, they get to that airport, they go through security, they stand in lines, they do all these things, they finally board the plane, they take what would be a 2 hour flight and it turns into a 6 hour journey, right? Or more. As to where if you have a private jet or access to one, you pull up, you jump on, you take a 2 hour flight, you jump off. And it is far better use of your time. So when we talk about investing that money or putting that money to work, that makes sense. So it's not so much the luxury things that you're doing, the big house, the this, the that. It's the flashiness of it, I think. It's the fact that like that's what you want to be seen. To me, that is the bigger flag, right? Is
But even the
um
money, like let's say we're doing first class, or let's say a jet.
yeah,
But do you have the money to do it? Like, does it fit in your budget to do
Yeah.
that, right? Like, or are you spending other people's money to get that
Yeah.
done, and now you're using money that is actually meant to be used for example, like actually investing. So it's like that financial, like we're talking before, understanding
Yeah.
of how you manage your money, because you can go do whatever you want, but does it make sense?
No.
Like
No.
making sure it makes sense. Like you said, saving those hours definitely can be super crucial. I mean, I've done certain things to save more time because it makes sense to do it, right? But then it's like, does it make sense also in the scheme of the budget too? You know,
Right.
like if they're doing first class, can you actually do first class? Does it financially make sense with your business
Right.
model to be able to do those things?
Correct. Yeah, and it's important to realize that that's still got to come out of your money. You know, the examples that you're raising, and we've seen unfortunate circumstances recently. I was actually just reading an update on an article from an unfortunate situation here in Canada with a mortgage company where it's been labeled as a Ponzi scheme officially now, which might mean that even the returns that the people who invested were getting back might be clawed back because it's considered an illegal activity, right? And so that's a terrible situation. That person was using funds, to your point, that were coming in inappropriately. So yeah, when it's your actual income, right? Like it's planned part of the business and it's your income and you're using part of it to say, hire someone to clean your house. Because those, 2, 3 hours a week you could better spend on the phone calling prospects. Or maybe it's even cooking your meals, right? If you're at that point. Again, that's an hour a day, 7 hours a week that you might be saving to be able to put back into your business. But if you're paying someone to do it and then just sitting on the couch and watching TV, like is
Exactly.
that a proper return on your investment, right? I mean, maybe because maybe
Exactly.
that's the only time that you have to sit with your family and
Yeah.
watch TV or to have that family time together, right? So yeah, it's all on how you spend it and what kind of return are you getting out of it. But the spending money to make money notion definitely comes down to spending it wisely, right? It should be something that should see a return, not just spending for flashiness or because you feel like it.
Yeah, I love that. So what's the last question? Because I think this is actually probably a very super interesting question for you, just because you are in a transformational period right now. You are making lots of changes right now. And if you'd love to share, I would love to hear what your big goal is and what changes you're making right now to achieve that big goal that you have for yourself.
Yeah. So, I recently left my job back in, a couple months ago, back in February. And um, it's now this shift into not allowing myself to ever go back to it, right? It's recognizing that I have to find a way to create that income, to have that income, because when you have the time freedom and the money is coming in from other places, it allows you to think more, right? Part of my challenge over the last few years is that I was spending all my time and effort at work. And by the time I was done, my emotional and mental capacity was completely drained. And so there was nothing left to put into my business. So when you are doing things for yourself and you're generating your income in other places, the amount of time that it actually gives you to think about bigger problems and how to move your business forward starts to exponentially open things up, right? So that's kind of the period that I'm in right now is identifying, okay, where are other areas that I can draw revenue from, that I can draw income from to be able to create that lifestyle for myself where I can continue to focus on my businesses and continue to grow them, right? So that's a huge shift for me mentally, right? From going from collecting a paycheck to truly earning money.
I love that. Yeah. It's definitely, yeah, I think right now you're probably going through lots of shifts. And I feel like, especially like you said, that employee one to really like not having that as a safety net. Because I mean, we can all be entrepreneurs, but at least for me, I definitely enjoyed that safety net of like the money I was getting by my employer and just completely like gone, now having to rely on myself. It is scary, but at the same time, it's fun. And like you said, especially once you get to the point where you can have that freedom, it gets exciting because you can be much more creative. And I think you become much more open to opportunities because you are like, I feel like that fear goes down a bit when you have like the cushion.
Yeah, no, for sure it does. And but that's also what holds you back, right? Because there's safety in that. You don't actually have to push yourself to discomfort at all. You can just keep doing what you're doing. You can just keep getting by with what's comfortable, but it's never actually going to get you closer to your goals. Again, depending on what your goals are. If your goals are to be in your job and do really well at your job and get promoted and follow that path, then absolutely it is, right? But if that's not your goal, and likely if you're watching this, you probably have other goals, right, to grow in other ways. And I'm not saying everyone goes out and quits their job, but like, it's that comfort of that paycheck, that safety net, it actually limits you, right? It limits you to your potential. Um, because you know that I don't really have to get up and make those calls. I don't really need to go and do that analysis, right? You tell yourself you want to, but you can always find excuses why you don't need to because the paycheck's still going to be there. So who cares? My bills will still get paid. And when you start to reach that point of, I don't know how my bills are going to get paid, right? You find ways inside of you to make it happen. It's amazing. Like, whenever we're in tough situations like that, people, humanity in general, tends to find ways to come out of it.
Yeah.
Right? You get really creative and you tend to find these ways to like come out of some kind of situation, a bad spot that you're in when you're put into it. But if you're in the comfortable spot of just collecting a paycheck in a place that you're super unhappy, that growth doesn't happen. That change doesn't happen. That challenge, that you rising above, that doesn't happen.
100%, completely agree. Well, it's exciting to hear you go through your new journey. I think it's going to be fun and it's going to be exciting. If you guys love what you heard from, then you can. If you love what you heard from Fernando, then you can definitely follow him on ReFan. You can check out his profile. He will be tagged on here, so you'll be also be able to DM him through there or just see what he's up to on Instagram also. And if you guys love what you heard from me, then definitely, and you want to know what I'm up to these days, definitely follow me too. Fernando, it's so much fun to chat with you.
Thank you, Dana. It's been great. Thank you so much.
Awesome. We'll see
All right.
everyone in the next episode. Bye, Fernando.
Take care.